So Lexis Create is a plugin to the Microsoft Word environment. So you'll see it attached up to there. Yours will normally be a black and white logo rather than the red one on my side. Essentially what it's for, it's an end-to-end document creation tool. So it's to help you with building your documents, but also proofreading and completing. That's where it's been listed out in these particular areas here. So the build phase is obviously for building, checking is for proofreading, and completing is to do the final touches. And we'll go through what each of those do throughout this recording. So firstly, stepping into the build area. So the build, to start with, you've got the PDF converter. So currently Lexis Create only works within the Word environment. So if you are working with a PDF, you just need to convert that first, and then you'll be able to scan over the top of that with Lexis Create. This particular feature is relatively new, and it has got good feedback, especially when you have got a document that's, say, handwritten and you've scanned in. It tends to be pretty successful at converting that for you. So again, that's a nice little added bonus into the build area. In a similar way, we also have our calculators. So the idea of this is that if you need to make any of your legal calculations, you can stay within the Word environment. You don't have to see those distractions when you go and see, look for your normal calculators on the internet. You can just do your simple calculations here, like for instance, date to date, choosing the dates, then you can have that nicely listed in that one spot. So a lot of this, the purpose of Lexis Create is to avoid the need to context switch and keep you in that Word environment and help you work as efficiently as possible. Another example of this in the build area is the content part. So content is where you can have your saved go-to clauses, snippets, or even access Lexis Plus practical guidance, precedents, or in other internal precedents and snippets additionally as well. So by going into here, you can see the different options. So the practical guidance is the practice notes, checklists, Q&As that are found in Lexis Plus that you subscribe to, as well as all the different forms and precedents you can access from the Word environment. Your shared snippets would be the firm-based snippets that are shared across the board, whether that's your team or firm-wide options or individuals sharing their snippets with you. But then your personal snippets, again, are the ones that you've saved. So you can see what I've created before here, but how to create a snippet yourself, pretty simple. We'll go down this particular page, find something that we want to snip, and say I want this particular part snipped into here, and I'll just call this example A. By selecting this first, and then pressing start the snippet, it automatically drafts that over for you, copies that over. We can then choose where this wants to be tagged, which are preset by the firm's admin, so you can put it to your relevant department or whether you want that to be saved. And then further down, you have the save to options. So again, this is going to be slightly different depending on how your firm has it set up. If you save to your own personal snippets, that means that you've got no problems. You can save that without any authorization from anyone else. If you have, say, department set up for your snippets, it's likely there'll be an approver for your department or for the firm-wide snippets that you put into there. So that will need to be wait to be approved, and you need to select the approver when the option will appear. But I'm just going to say this is my personal snippets, which will be no problem at all to save to. We can save that like so. Already got one for example. So we go that into my snippets like here. And there we have that saved. And now whenever we want to input this in somewhere else in the document, we can just go over to here, click into inserts, and it jumps that over quite nicely without minimal effort. So that's the build area of Lexis Create. So that's from you can reuse, starting from a blank page to going from a partly completed document, completed contract. It's all there to help you tailor and answer your questions in the Word environment. Further down, we then have the check part of the platform. So check is the proofreading part of Lexis Create. So what this does is it scans through the document looking out for potential risks, but also elements to check and make sure you can work through it as efficiently as possible doing that. It's split into these three different sections that you see. So the issue found are those risks, the elements that would need to be checked. The legal elements are definitions, cross-references, and citations, that we have lots of quick, easy way to make sure they're all correct. And then finally, the matter-specific information, which is those items that have already been input and completed, that either want to check them, or make sure they have been replaced with the correct words if you're reusing old documents. So we'll go through what each of these mean throughout this session today. So firstly, on the issues found. So firstly, starting off with incomplete information. Incomplete information is mainly kind of built on when you've got working up, say, a blank template. It will highlight all the different areas of the underlines, the brackets that you may have missed out, where you can fill out the company names really quickly, the addresses, or all the different details that need to be input. It's really simple to do so. So I can just go to here, add in whatever I'm wanted to add in, type, replace, and you can see it's nicely swapped out automatically. One thing to note is that you might get some occasions like here where we have a false positive. It's trying to identify every single risk that you are looking for that is possible, which potentially means like with here, you might not need to do anything. Because in this instance, it's mentioned product information in the definition, and we can say, well, I don't need to do anything off there. We can tick it off and move it to be checked. Essentially, each of these particular tasks that you see on this list is essentially a to-do list. If you don't need to do anything, you can just tick it off and move on to the next step. So that's your incomplete information. Next, we move over to the date and number mismatch. So this can be mainly around kind of numbers not matching up side to side, but it could also be, say, you've put in on a date that is the date that you put in, and you said it's Tuesday, the 24th, when actually it's a Friday, the 24th. So it's going to pick out a number of those different things that maybe you wouldn't as when typing it into a human, as well as that, the different number mismatches, like we've written the number 7 here with the number 4 next to it. So those little things that may be missed, but also Microsoft Word wouldn't pick up on. We then move down to the definition issues. So the definition issues is identifying any potential risks within your definitions. The main used parts here is firstly, I say there's two that are probably the most popular. There's firstly on the not found. So here we haven't got a definition for property, but we do have 15 mentions of property throughout the document. And what you can do is you go through each of those instances to see where property is mentioned, and then we can type in the definition for property if we wanted to, or create that ourselves. That's what the not found is. There's one other side to that, which is another popular one, is if we've not used. So for instance, here with FA, if we send this out to a client, we then remove out the certain clause that is mentioning FA. This is then going to remind us that we maybe don't need that definition anymore because we've not actually used that definition throughout the document, so we can just tidy everything up. I'd say that they're some of the most used parts of the definitions area, but there are others like not capitalized, duplicates. Something that you may come across that you'll get quite a lot of kind of more false positives, would say, is on the use before defined. That is very much based on if you've got a lot of content before your definitions. So again, it's just something to be aware of. When more you use this product, the more you'll get used to what needs to be looked at as the major key risks, and some things that I'll maybe say, right, have a quick look, don't need to do anything there, and move through. You'll also notice that there's multiple instances of these. You can replace all instances in one go, and that is something consistently available across the features. Moving further down, you've then got your cross-referencing issues, formatting issues, numbering issues. These are kind of all work in the same style of way, picking out potential risks or issues with, in this case, your cross-references. Like here, we've mentioned clause 33. Clause 33 doesn't exist, and then we have the option to replace that link. Now, with the formatting and numbering issues, because house style isn't implemented here, it might be that this could be a part that you don't really look into too much. The idea of this is to pick up on areas that Microsoft Word wouldn't. You might need this for things like unpaired punctuation or kind of spacing issues that you have, but especially on the numbering front and probably on the formatting as well, because your house style isn't implemented, it's likely that lots of the risks that are coming up are going to be against your firm's house style. So just think about that when using it. With Lexis Create, I don't expect you to use absolutely every single feature. Most people have their 2, 3, 4 key features that you use on a regular basis, and it really helps them save them some time. So just think about when using it. The issues found, that's issues found done. We'll move across to the legal elements next. So this is kind of the checks. So firstly, starting off with the definitions. This is where we've got a list of all the defined terms throughout the document. So we can go to bio like so. We have the definition listed there. And we can just move through the document quite nicely, checking that the definition matches up to exactly what we're looking for. So you've always got the definition there, and you can also change the definition whilst you are in this point. And if you need to jump back to where the definition was, just press the jump to definition. We're back up there, and then we can return to the defined term. So that has come recently on an update to have that more in that split screen view. For those of you that are more used to using Lexis Draft in the past, there was that kind of more split screen element. The reason why it looks like this now versus the old is that Microsoft is no longer supporting that old split screen options in the coding in the background. So this is what we've built. I'm going to roll this out on some other features as well. Moving further down, you've then got your cross-reference checks. So it works in a similar way to the definitions, making sure that all of your cross-references match up to what they need to be. And you can also create hyperlinks if you need to. And additionally, on the citations. Now, the citations is slightly different from these, as this is the direct link from the Word environment into the legislation found within Lexis Plus. So all the legislation in Lexis Plus is, of course, up to date. So what you can do is scan through and make sure that every single citation is using the correct law. What I would do with this is I'll go to my filters first and make sure I'm just pulling from your relevant status, the kind of the most risks of the status, I'd say, which would be no longer in force and unresolved in main. Obviously, it's up to you to do the rest of the checks. That'll then put a filter to the main risks, and you can see that this particular example has been identified as no longer in force. When I click into this, it has found a potential replacement within Lexis Plus, but you can also press this option here, which will link you directly into Lexis Plus to then do your further checks yourself. If you just want to replace that straight away, you can press the replace option, and then that's going to correct that for you. The unresolved area is when we have not got a direct match between your document and the database itself. So that could be if you put in the wrong year of the act, which I believe it is with this one, or maybe you've got a misspelling, you've used an abbreviation that doesn't match up. Those examples where it's looked across our legislation, which has all UK legislation in there, and it doesn't match up to the exact example. So they're the kind of key risks, and it's a good way just to make sure, especially if you've pulled, say, an old internal precedent, that we're not sure if it's been updated or not, just make sure that the law is still correct, or say if you're reusing an old document additionally. Further down, we then have the matter-specific information. So these are the checks on the data that's been input. We notice there is the negotiable amounts to start with. So this is going to identify all of those potential negotiable amounts throughout the document. It means you need to do a quick check to make sure there's the right amount of zeros there for those kind of key elements, which is quite important parts within the contract, to make sure it's completely up to exactly what it needs to be. In a similar way, you've then got the same option for dates and times. The extra functionality that is included on this is you'll notice that weekends are stated so that payments can go through when you want them to. It'll be the same for bank holidays and leap years additionally. But quite simply, it lists all the different dates and times in that document so you can do those checks nice and quick. And then finally, on the identifiable information, this is the other side really of the incomplete information. It's anything kind of personal that's been automatically input. That can be names of companies, that can be addresses. If there's ever a name of a company listed, which I think we should have in here, which we do for National Grid, you'll notice there's also a jump out area, which means you can get that link takes you straight through to where National Grid in this case is being mentioned in company's house, so you can make sure that all of the data matches up. So that's the core features. One I did miss out on issues found is you'll see down the bottom there is the non-inclusive language feature. Just one thing to point out with this. So firstly, what it's doing is identifying any inclusive language throughout the document, and it's built so you can nice and efficiently kind of replace that with neutral language. One thing I'd say when using this is that it will suggest replacements, but do just make sure that changing that replacement still makes sense of that in that sentence overall. We find that it's not normally just a simple swap out, in this case from his to theirs. You might need to restructure the whole sentence. So just think about that if you're using that feature. So that's the proofreading part of Lexis Create. The final part we want to cover is the complete area. Now, the complete area is kind of the final touches to the document. A number of these is around removing any kind of metadata behind the scenes and tracking involved, whether that is the data created from Lexis Create or other elements that you found within the document. It's basically make sure it's client ready and it can't be, no tracking is included. So you can see the option here with a cleaner doc. This is where you can choose just the bits you want to remove, where it's removing out the hyperlinks, where it's removing out the citations itself. You have the options to do that there. Further down, that is similar for the finalize area, which is removing all tracking as the kind of the final touches to it. We then have your redaction feature. So this is an automation for your redaction process. The key thing when using this particular feature is that you need to make sure you save an extra copy before redacting, because once it's redacted, it can't be undone. So make sure you have an extra copy in case you need the unredacted version. When we then go into the feature, it then rescans the document for any potential information that needs to be redacted. So the personal information, addresses, all of what you can expect for this. It'll take a little bit of time to load, but just whilst it's doing that, I'll show you some of the other options. So you'll see what I've redacted before, just off here. There we go. So the key things with the redaction is it's not just kind of like blanking that out in black, it's actually removing all the data behind it. So it can't be undone, can't be seen by the people you don't want to see it. It's the whole point of redactions. The way to use the redaction feature is to either select what the parts you want to be redacted, then press the redaction options just there. You could select all and then redact all at one go, or you can also choose the bits that you wanted to redact, and you can select that like so, and that will use that same formatting to redact it there. So it's a nice, efficient way to redact your document securely. Moving further down, you then have your reporting options. So you ever need to show any evidence to maybe your manager or whoever you asked to proofread for them. If you've been asked to proofread for them, then what you can do here is choose just the bits of the areas that you've completed and show that as reported. So whenever you kind of check off one of those tasks as completed, then that will show up in the report. And so you can create a separate document, say just for the definition checks that you've done, and then generate a separate document to show that as your evidence to your manager. It also can be used if you receive something from the other side and you see a number of different areas, say of out-of-date legislation. Again, you can use that as evidence to create the report for. Final few features. So there is the final check area. This is something that will be changed with your admin rights for the firm. This will be basically what we set up as the final check that needs to be done. So some firms would maybe have the negotiable amounts found within here. As standard, you have incomplete information, because if you've left things incomplete, then it definitely needs to be looked at. But that may be different from firm by firm. Some people do negotiable amounts, some people do definitions, whatever makes the most sense. But as standard, you can see incomplete information in there to make sure you do those final complete checks to make sure that everything's been done. And then finally, you have the DocuSign integration. Now, with the DocuSign integration, the idea is to make sure you can get DocuSign again within the Word environment. The key thing with this, though, is it will be just singular documents. So if you use envelopes quite a lot on DocuSign, say for like 50 documents at the same time, it's likely you still want to use the normal DocuSign portal. And additionally, if you have any customized settings, firm settings with DocuSign, then it may be, again, that you're going through to still the direct DocuSign portal. But the idea of this is you've got DocuSign within the Word environment rather than having to use multiple systems. So that is Lexis Create, really. The ways to use. Key thing is to get using it. Don't feel like you need to use absolutely everything there. Find the bits that will save you time that you need to use, and that's what I'd get used to using. The more you use it, the more effective you'll get with it. But if you do need further support, do please contact your dedicated customer success manager. Thank you very much. Recording's been put